Um, what I would like to do today is to just share some of my experiences and thoughts and share my journey. I think most of us would agree that education is something that runs very deep within each of us, you know? And we see education as a passport to the future. To start off a little bit on how this whole thing came about, how I started Catalyze and everything. I'm basically a scientist. I'm a scientist by profession. And my basic education was in science. I was a biochemist. In India, I got educated in India. I did my bachelor's there. And then I went to the USA for a master's degree. For a PhD degree. That was in biochemistry too. But due to some reasons, I had to come back to India with a master's degree. And then I worked in the biotech industry for several years, for about 10 plus years. And during this course, I was a scientist, I was in research and development. I was also heading strategic business units. So in 2003, my daughter was born. And at that time, I was, heading a strategic business unit for a biotech company, which involved a lot of travel. So I had to travel quite a bit. It was like 22, 23 days a month. I was out away from the family and all that. Very enjoyable. It was thoroughly enjoyable, but it was just cutting out so much of my time at home and what I could be giving to my daughter. I think deep within me, there was always this drive and this passion to go back to school and to get a PhD, because that is what I had always dreamt of. I wanted those 3 letters. And being a scientist, I always believed, and through different experiences, when you work in research, you always think that somebody with a PhD can do science independently, And so this was a driving force. And as I went back to school. In 2005, I decided that I'm not going to do my, job anymore. I think I had reached that stage where I was looking for something else. So I decided that I would quit my job and then go back to school to get a PhD. Now that was a huge step because it meant getting back to books. It meant studying, and that's really hard when you've been away from studies for so long, So the PhD program in India is very similar to what is there worldwide. The first 2 years is probably, coursework, and then you get into research. So when I was in Michigan State, I was a teaching assistant there. And I used to tutor students for about, it was a class of about 400 students, undergraduate students. We had, of course, a faculty teaching them, but as a teaching assistant, I had to assist the faculty. And what I used to do is we used to meet up with the students in small groups of about 30 or 40 students. So we had about 10 groups a week, and we had to get through that. This tutoring sessions were mainly to help the students understand conceptually if they had any, gaps in understanding and things like that. So this was way back in 93. I'm talking about 93. When I joined PhD, it was 2006, 2007. So it was like a considerable gap, right? About 15 years or more. And this time I was the oldest in the class. So I was in my late 30s, and the other students were all in their early 20s. So being, the oldest in the class has its advantages and disadvantages. The advantages being that you can always, you can rely on your expertise and experience because you have that backing you. But the disadvantages are that, you have a reputation to live up to. So it's like it can be quite demanding sometimes. So as we were, I used to interact with students, my classmates basically, who are so much younger to me. Some things just started to open up. In 20 years, a lot had changed. You know, technology has changed everything, changed the way people perceive things, changed cognitive abilities, changed researching capacities, everything has changed. And as I interacted more and more with these students, I would, you know, I would see a vast, well, some similarities with what I had, you know, experienced in Michigan State, but some differences. The similarities would be, I would think, that the teaching process, which is basically creation of energy, creation of knowledge, all of this had not changed. But what had changed is 20 or 25 years back, getting a degree and getting a job is what people would be looking at. But now, what we are looking at is more of attitude, skills, personality, and how is the person going to be a team player. You know, the whole thing has changed. And as I was, you know, interacting more and more with these people, something just started to grow within me. It's a push, that's all I can say. Because every entrepreneur gets asked this question, what made you start this? What gave you this idea? You know, it's a push that comes from inside. And I just knew that, you know, personalization or catering to individual needs of the student is what the future is going to be. Every individual has a learning curve. Every individual has concepts that they are clear about, some, you know, that they are not so clear about. And I personally feel that personalization offers you, you know, you can personalize programs and bridge those gaps in learning. So with this vision, I started Catalyze Center in 2008. In 2008, still, I'm talking about, you know, I was in the middle of my PhD and I was a student myself. This is an entrepreneurial venture that I just floated because I felt I should do it. And it was not something that I was putting all my energies into. It was something that it's an idea and it was started. I created a website, you know, and then put up some ads, and, you know, a few students contacted me, and it was just growing organically. But it was still a period, at least in India, where, you know, technology had not caught up as much as the Western world. It was a period where, you know, Skype, people had to be educated on interfaces, digital interfaces like Skype. And so we had this, you know, Microsoft Word document that we would send to people. This is what you need, your system requirements, you know, and you have to get ready for the class, blah, blah, you know. So that is how the whole thing started. Then I finished my PhD, and then I took up an associate professorship in a college for 2 years, and I taught for 2 years. And then in 2013, I saw a major change. Suddenly, you know, Skype had become a household name. People were very comfortable interfacing. You know, the questions that I used to get asked before, like, oh, what if I don't have a teacher in front of me? You know, what if the questions, list of questions or the objections that we used to have, they had all changed. And people used to call in and say that, okay, so you have a Skype class? Okay, that's fine. Can I have a demo? You know, things like that. Earlier we had to go and tell them what Skype was. So that was a real palpable change. So in 2013, I had also reached a stage where I had decided that I would put in all my energies into this now. And from 2013, we have grown quite a bit as an organization. Today we are catering to students globally. Although our primary focus is school education, what we do is we bridge learning gaps, as I already told you. We interact with the students and we try to understand their needs, what they actually want. For example, if you take a child of, say, grade 6 or grade 7, most of them are good in arithmetic. But when we enter algebra or trigonometry, then, you know, there is a gap. And so we try to bridge these gaps, and we've been very successful. We are helping students world over. Slowly we have also branched into other verticals. One other vertical that we are offering is the SATs and the IELTS competitive exams, and the third one is spoken English. At this point, I would like to talk to you a little bit about, what are we as an organization are a women-centric organization. We employ women mainly who can work from homes, use the online medium to work from homes, and many of them are teachers. They are also into other administrative activities as coordinators to coordinate the classes and other things. And yeah, I think one of the things that I didn't mention is about the benefits of online learning. One of the benefits of online learning is that there is no geographical barrier. We have students, we have a teacher in Mumbai, say for example, learning from somebody, and we have a student in Luxembourg, we have a student in Vietnam, we have a student in Jakarta, and they all get the best tutors on the screen. And the other benefits are, of course, personalization, because these are one-on-one classes. So today as an organization, we are 50 plus tutors, out of which about 95% are women. And we have crossed about 18,000 hours of tutoring. And our future plans, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, I don't know about the other countries, but at least in India, the teacher turnover in schools is very, very high. Schools are finding it very difficult to hold on to their teachers. And this teacher turnover is about 36%. It's 36%. So in about 4 to 5 years, I'm guessing that we will have to take some of these online classes to schools. So that is what I would envision, at least. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share a little bit about what we are doing. And I do firmly believe in the power of education, to create something new and positive. Thank you.